Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Relating to DevSecOps, where we explore the development, security, and operational issues of today so that we can solve real-world problems with people that face them. And in today's episode, this long-awaited episode, as we've been working through mornings, afternoons, and evenings, is about the end of the year, Q4, and what it's like to be a security practitioner in this time. This is a harrowing time for the security industry because Q4 is notoriously busy and full of excitement and causing delays to podcasts like this one. So, welcome back, and Mike, welcome back to the show. How are you? Are you refreshed and recharged after your work today?
Going heavy on the sarcasm to start the episode. That's good.
Absolutely.
Very refreshed, very recharged. Life is just recharging. It's
Yeah,
just every day is a beautiful adventure.
it is. It is. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about what are we going to talk about? What haven't we talked about in a while? And I think Mike and I have both had pretty busy months. We know we have a bunch of colleagues and customers that have also had busy months. It's end of year, end of quarter, end of fiscal years, going into the holiday season. And we thought it might be good to talk about, what are some things you can do to sort of lighten the load and keep things from becoming too much? Because we know that burnout is still a thing, and a lot of folks are still working remotely, and it's still relevant that, it's the distance between your personal life and your work life is, a couple of steps into an office or a kitchen. And so we thought we might talk about that as it pertains to DevSecOps in the security industry, especially for folks that are on the front lines and responding to things 24/7. So Mike, let's just get into it, man. What do you think? Why do you think this happens in Q4? What is it that is so special about the security industry that makes Q4 so ridiculously busy for us?
I wish I had a really good answer besides people spend all their budget at the end of the year that they've forgotten to spend, and they realize fiscal year is ending or has ended for some folks, and so they're just playing catch up and trying to schedule things. I definitely think that's part of it, but I wonder also if people are just like, I want to be done before the holidays, so let's get everything done right now so I can just chill through the holidays, which just makes this time of year in the security space a rush. When you look at the schedule, like you get through October and you have basically 2-3 week months where people are actually focused. And, I'd say half focused the rest of those 2 months. Like people are thinking about Thanksgiving, people are thinking about Christmas, travel, New Year's, all that stuff. And so October is the last really all out month where you can get a lot done. So I think that kind of influences how busy it gets in the security space.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned folks spending their budgets. Do you think that if you could say something to, a new customer or maybe a security engineer that is trying to spend the budget, what would you suggest when interacting with consulting firms or vendors that can sort of help solve both problems without like causing a bunch of friction or end of year work? When folks are spending that, because I know, and just to clarify, it's like, oh, we got to get this pen test in by the end of the year. Like, what are some techniques? Maybe it's administrative or something that folks can use to kind of solve the problem of spending their budget, but also not overburden themselves by putting that in place in the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, we advise folks just to like shift when they do these things. Like you normally do it Q4, move to Q1, Q2 type of thing. So for the folks who are like, oh crap, I need a pen test, I gotta find someone who's saying that to themselves today. Like the horses kind of left the barn on that. There's not a huge amount you can do. To be honest, I always tell potential customers too, like, don't. This is not the time to try to get work done. Like, I mean, we're gonna do plenty of work for the next 2.5 months, but a lot of pen test firms out there, a lot of security firms are double, triple billing their people right now, and you don't really want a person who's like doing his third test of the day and your hour number 10 or 12, like that's the tired person who's going to miss an interesting security bug. So I definitely always advise folks to like move it to Q1 and Q2. Otherwise, just like try to not be super aggressive with what you're trying to get done. Like have very, pinpointed goals, pinpointed assessments, and do as much coordination up front as you can, because you're going to start getting those out of office emails soon, and once that happens, the year gets done, and not much you can do about it. I don't know what else is there. What else is there that you can do really?
I was thinking as you were talking, like maybe tentatively schedule for the following year. If you're scrambling this year, for that, talk to those vendors or folks that do these like point in time engagements for you about scheduling it for the following years. Because if you can get that at least penciled in, then you can sort of work out the contracting as things go. Well, I don't know how many people are flexible with that, but I know that some firms can be. I think the other thing you mentioned is that you have like two people that are double or triple billed on projects, trying to close things out for their customers and working long hours and things like that. On the consulting side, how do you what can security vendors or practitioners do to recognize like these signals that even the like their engineers are burning out? I think that in a lot of cases, folks really want to help, want to get to the end of the year, know that this is crunch time. What is the sort of no-go signal for you, or the thing that makes you go, okay, time for you to like take a break?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you start seeing people who don't normally make mistakes, making mistakes, if it's like, someone found something in an app that they were testing that they didn't find, or like minor reporting issues, or they're just like rushing, and that's when someone's just like burnt out and wants to, or needs a break, and just, if you've been working all year, you haven't taken many vacations, like this time of year, you're definitely getting tired after, especially in the pen test world where you're doing a lot of very focused work. It's not like you can have your brain off while doing pen testing, so you get burnt out over doing a lot of this type of work. So if you see people making small mistakes or just moving slower than normal, and they're like a really consistent person, then that's definitely a sign that they're hitting their limit, and need to take some time off even before it's like the holidays, because nothing worse than people who are just pushing themselves through burnout to try to get stuff done, because I think you can either push through it and end up in a better place, or they're going to wait for the Christmas holiday or something like that to take time off. So I think that's the big thing. It's just when they get sloppy.
Yeah. Also, I think like people being short, or like like the person that's always sort of calm finally snaps. I think is like
Yeah.
a big indicator. You see that happen a lot at the end of the year. And make sure people get that time off. What is speaking of time off? What as people are sort of wrapping these things up, and they're like, okay, if I could finally like take off. Somebody still like there are some companies that sort of do their winter break or whatever, but there are other companies where you need coverage. I kind of wanted to highlight like what are some things that we can do to help people that are still on the ground when we go on PTO to like make sure that we transition things well, that we make it as easy as possible when staff is light. Any tips?
Yeah, I mean, I think again going back to like the how many work weeks are left idea is like if you're thinking about the quarter as a quarter, like don't like go look at a workday calendar and redo your plans, because it's not a typical quarter in a lot of different ways. I think mentally for people, it's not a typical quarter. Like the last week of November and the last week of December, like people are checked out as soon as possible, and so I think you have to, as a manager, as a leader, like you have to think about when am I cutting off what we're going to accomplish this year and just being like, we're done, versus how much am I going to torture people in December 20th to get something done that doesn't really need to be done until January 15th or something like that. Like maybe there's a hard deadline for this year, but a lot of times people just force stuff in and it's just not realistic. And then the biggest thing that happens is, you have your key people, and then like someone else takes time off, and then you're like, oh, well, I need this person to get something done. So like you don't get blocked because one person's out, you get blocked because some other person from some other team is out, and that just slows everything down. And you had hoped to get stuff out December 20th, and it doesn't happen, and it shifts to Q1, and on your dashboard it looks like a failure. So I think just being realistic, like it's not a typical month. I think it's also just fair to not treat it like a typical month and quarter. Like don't burn your people to the very last minute until it's Christmas Day, and you're like, all right, have some time to yourself, enjoy your family. I'll see you in a day. Let's get back to it. So like, it's not a good practice.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the easy way to say that is like don't be a hero in Q4, no matter where you
Yeah.
are in the I guess hierarchy of management or on the ground. It's like not only being realistic about the timelines that are there, but also um, I feel like that you're not going to have the capacity going into like October to December that you did the rest of the year. There are like so many holidays and people cashing in PTO and the workload increases, and so it's just like this really weird juxtaposition of just a lower staff count and higher demand that like causes mistakes. So it's not the time to build. Like these are the times for I don't know, like maintenance, documentation,
Hmm.
and I feel like we sort of push into that. Like on the industry side, it's not the time for new features or experimentation. Like this, I love thinking about Q4 as like the security sprint or like the backlog, quarter. I know that that's not a popular opinion, but I would love if we thought about it more that way because it's like it seems like a good time to do that kind of stuff is to like clean up the shop and sort of prepare for the holidays metaphorically and realistically.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I think it's a good time to like slow down and do those kind of like priority two or three things that you've been kicking off the schedule for months now. I mean, hopefully security is not priority two or three, but for some places it might be. And now they're coming around to it. But no, I think that's definitely true. Like the boring stuff you don't want to do all the time because you're in a rush because you have like priorities to get done. Now's a good time when it calms down to just like focus on that stuff and get it done. And I think really getting prepared for like Q1 next year is also a good thing. Like all the things you need to get prepared for next year, do that now so you can hit the ground running. Because things pick back up like January 15th ish time frame. Things
Yeah.
don't start January 1st. People are still hungover, so uh, you know, got to give them a week or two to recover. But I think planning for that is definitely helpful. I'm telling folks that I work with, like, whatever we want to change right now, just put it on this document. Let's think about it, and we'll do it in January because we're not going to try to tackle, changing the wheels on the car as it drives down the highway right now. We'll wait because it's just one more thing we'll have to get done in the middle of trying to get everything else done.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that there's also there's probably like I think it's also a time. I mean, if you're talking on the incident response side, it's also a time that we're really targeted. Like security teams are, especially response teams are hit pretty hard during holiday season. So I mean, you add that on is like another reason not to like just to like have a little bit of that bench to be able to
Hmm.
respond effectively to things because it just adds to the churn if you are trying to deal with stuff like that and the increase in that traffic plus the build side of things. Um, I guess if you like, have you seen some success? We talked about sort of the maintenance side of what happens in Q4. Have you seen any like? Do you have any case studies or like? Are there any stories that you could think of where, like you've seen that actually work, where somebody has taken this, or are we all just doing it wrong?
Uh, taking Q4 as a slow time, or just being prepared for the
Well,
eventual 0 day that's going to pop up in 3 weeks.
I mean, either as a slow time or like thinking about capacity differently, or some of the things we talked about, like using it as like a maintenance sort of window for Q4, or giving people more time off. Like some of the things that we talked about, sort of the some companies do the winter break thing where the whole company closes. I mean, I just have you seen anybody do something you were like, man, that's a great idea for Q4 in the security industry? Or yeah, we talked
Yeah.
about this maintenance window sort of quarter, and that and like set them up for success in the following year? Or are these just theories that we have that nobody's actually executing?
I mean, I think it's like, yeah, I think it might be kind of tough. I think there's some of it, but like I do see more big companies go into like a change freeze period where like December 15th hits and they're like, no more big things, like no more pen testing, no more releases, all that kind of stuff, which is good because this is not, again, not cool to be pushing your team up until the last minute, pushing stuff out the door, which might break, which just means working the holidays to fix something. So I definitely see it in that way, which is good. Whether people really capture that time to focus on other things, I'm not sure. I think a lot of folks check out. I think to your point, which is, I mean, it's not a bad thing to check out at some point. You got to take a break at some point. So it's better then than, in the middle of a busy time. I think to your point, like, I don't know if people do a good job of being prepared for the eventual like security issue that pops up. I think it's really hard, especially with companies that have small security teams where you don't have 10 people in terms of redundancy. Like you have two folks who can handle an incident and maybe only like one. So I think that's really difficult, for sure to have overlap, but maybe October's a good time to do your tabletop exercises to make sure like when the shit hits the fan that like the tree of people to reach out to.
Yep.
I don't know, have you seen any of that, like where people are actually preparing, for the eventual 0 day that pops up? I guess it was F5 is our most recent incident that thankfully it's not the holidays quite yet, but that's, the least recent oh shit moment for people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really, honestly, that's why was asking you, because I think it's a great idea. I don't know that I know of anybody that's actually done it where they've said, all right, Q4 is like repair mode, or like catch up on all the backlog stuff. I've seen people do like months, but they're usually in the middle of the year. And I think it's a good idea, but I don't know if I've actually seen it executed. So it's something that I think folks might want to try and take from this podcast and be like,
Hmm.
hey, management, we should take a break.
I'll be here, but I'm not going to really be completely here. Okay, I'm going to be working on some documents and stuff.
Yeah, like, yeah, that's the other thing. Like, don't forget documentation. Um, Document, this is like a good time for the playbooks and a good time for, um, putting together your PTO transfer plan for your team or whatever it is, so that you can make sure that they have confidence in doing that kind of stuff. It's like I feel like there's an opportunity for a lot of preparation that would help prevent burnout from the people you're leaving in on the ground, and it would go a long way because they'll probably do something similar for you if you prepare them well. Um, yeah. I think that it's just
Yeah.
super relevant because I think you and I are both in a position where it's like, man, it's just like an endless supply of just you know uh, stress and work and like and I feel like we go through this every year, and I just am I just want like to like make sure that other folks know that it's not just them, and two that uh you know that there's stuff that we can do to sort of help stop this as an industry over time, and to be more prepared. But right now they're all ideas, I guess.
Yeah. I saw a funny quote that it was about parenting, which was something like, you think you're as stressed as you possibly can be, and then somehow your kid makes your life more stressful. And I feel like security is the same way. We're all at like a baseline of stress and anxiety about what's going to happen, and then like something does happen, and you're like, oh, it can get worse. It could be even get way worse. Like
It's
I don't get to sleep 8 hours a night anymore.
it's funny, like something to talk about it, and that is, do you remember, like, can you distinctly remember like how you reacted to the first big security event you've experienced in your career versus like today how you react to security events in your career, like when something is like completely crazy?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's. I remember the first one that I was internal at a company, and it felt huge. It felt like kind of world ending, and like, holy crap. And then when you get involved in the IR space, you're like, you should feel that way. Be like, this is so rote, and just the same things happened again and again. And it's it's almost like, not to compare us to doctors and nurses and things like that, but like they're so jaded and so like disconnected from the reality of what they deal with. It's kind of the same thing when you've been through enough issues where you're like, this does seem like it should be a huge issue and it'll be on the news and stuff, but you're like, hey, it's just another Tuesday. Like that's
Yeah.
how it feels eventually. So
So any last thing? What you got going on? You got any talks coming up in Q4? You doing any major things in the beginning of the year? What's going on? Where can people reach you? What's happening?
I know it's a little early, but reInvent is coming up. Very relaxing event in the middle of the holidays in Vegas, first week of December. So I'll be out there for 4 days, doing a webinar about some of the voting security work. Also that week, some more details will be on our LinkedIn about that. So that's coming up, which will be interesting. And yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn mostly. I hate that I say that, but Twitter's dead and MySpace, no one's hitting me up on there anymore. So
Yeah, yeah,
LinkedIn's where it's at. So yeah,
yeah. Just Tom.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool. Kind of wraps it up for preventing burnout with Mike again. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.